Welcome to Can Angels Fly. I'm Nancy, and today I'm here to deliver an astrological message. I'll tell you, you won't believe it. Those that are not religious, this message will just really be an irritant to you. Now, I have to state here that I didn't set out to find this message. I just chose to interpret the stars for, I think it's April 29th, 2018. Now, I always share here on YouTube that I'm an amateur star gazer and astrologer, but I think I do a pretty good job. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I just got through interpreting these stars, and so I'm going to share the message that I found. But before I begin, I'd like to say a few more things. For those that are religious, traditionally religious, especially in Christianity, I find this so interesting, this message, because it really lines up with that which basically I picked up when I was in the church. I'm like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Now, I know that there are many occult secrets that have been a mystery from the general public for centuries, but now we are awakening. And I'm going to, in a minute, I'm just going to read what I wrote down. Hopefully I was writing so fast that it'll make sense. But what you will hear in the course of this interpretation of the stars for April 29th, 2018, I do believe. I should have wrote the date down, but I just clicked on the energies for the day. So I believe it is for April 29, 2018. If not, it's the 30th. But it doesn't matter, because the truth of the matter is, once there is a message or energy signature in our environment, it doesn't just come and go. The energy sets out and performs the task in which it was commanded to do so. Like I said, those that aren't religious are going to be really irritated by this video, but I ask you not to click off. Just listen to this interpretation, because it's amazing. I'm not a religious person. Again, I had my time in the church, and yes, it has an influence and an impact on me. However, whenever I read the stars or something like that, I didn't quite get this message. Spirit guided me this evening to look again. Oh, look at this. Stuff stuck on my eyes. Wee hours of the morning. And I just kept working on through, because it was so interesting, you know, to find this message. What I will say is, I was led by Spirit to have an experience on March 6, 2016. I speak of it quite frequently, and it's a prophetic message. Divine also guided me some time later to interpret the stars associated with the time that I had the experience, and it talked about humanity, the state of humanity, and the change that needed to take place, and how God was going to move to try to transform our minds, you know, because we were on the wrong path, yada, yada, yada. I was so shocked when I saw that. And it lined up with the physical experience I had. This is really getting deep. And so I'm highly intrigued, because life's so boring to me, y'all. Life is so boring to me. I would really like to see something happen, you know, for my lifetime. I've wondered about this God, you know. I wonder about spirituality. I've sought so many. I got papers and stuff everywhere. I've been down so many avenues, so many paths to discover myself, God, how we relate, why we are here. You know, I've been searching for years to answer some of these questions, and now it seems like the answers are emerging. I bring up religion because the text that I studied when I was in the church many years ago was the King James Version Bible, primary source. And I've been trying to figure out how to describe the Bible, because it's man is corrupt. So I don't think that it was completely divinely inspired by God, but at the same time, it does provide necessary information and instructions for the physical realm. And it foretells of past, present, and future. Basically, it's doing the same thing that I'm doing here on YouTube. And I mean, no offense. But, oh, I got stuff all in here. It's true. It's true. And my study of the stars have taken me to a place, led me to a place where I understand now those that compose the Bible and other similar texts. Remember, in antiquity, most people couldn't read or anything, you know. People were struggling to survive in this wild world. But there were certain people, philosophers, you know, the scholars, what do you call them, the scribes and things like that, that dealt with that kind of stuff. That was the occult. We who humanity has advanced so, and we have so much technology before us, so much research, and we are awakening. I'm rambling for a minute because I'm just in awe. I'm in awe. And I can see now how humanity could have been greater than it is. Not that we're great, but I could see if we could have really depended on our leadership and our religious institutions to really teach what was already here, that the general public didn't know how to interpret, could not see. The Bible is a reflection of the works of those ancient philosophers and scribes and mathematicians, and it is what do you call it when you compile all the books into one? I'm about to get started. Forgive me. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm looking raggedy. So I'm just going to read so I'm just going to roll out the information, and what you will hear is repeated information. And the reason why it's repeated is because how the aspects relate to one another. This is an astrological reading. It is a energy reading for April 29th, 2018. But this energy just doesn't come in a day and leave. No, it comes and it sets out to perform the task in which it was commanded to do. I chuckle because I remember this verse in the Bible when I was in church. It says God's word does not come back to him void. It goes something like this: God's word does not return to him void. It goes out to accomplish what it has been sent out to achieve. Same thing. That's what I'm saying. The people that contributed to our religious texts, historical books, were just aware of the rules to the game, to this realm, and they knew how to apply them when the rest of the general population did not. They took it to the population. I do believe in the past they may have taught it more with integrity and in much more detail. But the time came where we grew increasingly selfish and self-righteous, and then knowledge was for sale. And the people were forsaken, and we have fallen into this low state of existence. And because we've fallen so far from grace, who is God? I don't know who God is. That which created us. But we've fallen so far from his grace to obviously she however you like to define, the divine being has set something in motion to try to save us from ourselves, obviously, from ourselves. So I'm just going to read, just ride the wave with me. And yes, it does sound very religious, but that's what the interpretation brought about. So I'm not going to break down houses, anything. I went through all of that over the last 4-5 hours. Anyway, number one, it says that, how can I say this? There are certain terms I'm going to use. So I'm going to give you a vocabulary list as we go along. One of the terms that I know that I'll be using is one. One means yourself, you. If not you, me. If not you or me, the next person. It talks about the individual person. I don't want to give the terms out. So I'm going to start reading, and I will give you the terms or the vocabulary for this interpretation. It's amazing. Oh, God, something that I didn't write because I tried to narrow it down as much as possible when I was preparing for this video. And one thing that I saw, it is about, and we often hear this, especially on YouTube, relative to metaphysics and astrology and tarot reading and spirituality and consciousness, is that we can be in our higher selves or our lower selves. And when I was interpreting the stars, I kept seeing the archetype of Capricorn, which is the centaur, which is half goat, half man. Lower half is goat. And that goat is related to Pan, a mythical creature, Greek mythical creature, I do believe. And Pan was lascivious, sexual pleasures and perversions and indulgence. That's what he was about. But then the top half of him was a man, rising out of that, overcoming that lower nature and taking on the essence of a man who is a creator, who has free will and has consciousness. He knows right from wrong. That choice exists in this reading. That's what it's about. And then it also was repeated again under Sagittarius. You know, Sagittarius archetype is half horse and half man. When we think about the horse, it's a horse of unbridled passion and energy and running free and strong and hard. You think of about a wild horse. And then the top half, what, is a man who is intellectual and can think things through, again, knows right from wrong and can learn. Those kind of things, overcoming. So this is what people have been talking about the ascension process and about the wave that is coming. We are in the midst of this wave of information is being interpreted by the general public. I'm one of the general people that is here to share this message. And it's so exciting. I'm so excited. I'm trying to stay calm. And it's just so, it is about overcoming that lower nature, that animal instinct, those urges, those desires, those passions, that urge or desire to run free and just to do. And it's also very self-serving. And what are we self-serving? What are we serving ourselves with? The world, the worldly goods. That's another thing that a term I often heard when in the church, as well as I did some studies with Jehovah's Witnesses too. I did a few studies in a lot of different, quite a few religions, and it was the worldly folk. Wanting the world, but losing your soul. This is so interesting. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and begin to read my interpretation. And there will be some vocabulary words along the way that I will emphasize, and that's for a purpose. Number one, unaware of one, let me try to improv. We are unaware if we are working through the spirit or the flesh. That was always a a topic in the church, working in the physical, in the flesh, or the spirit. That's what the interpretation of the stars says. So just ride this wave with me. It says we are unaware as individual beings in this world. We each, the majority of us, keep in mind the archetype of Capricorn, with the centaur, lower half goat, upper half man, lower nature, higher nature, which is also represented with the archetype of Sagittarius, which is the lower half is a horse running wild and free, upper half of man of intellect and knowing right from wrong and making choices. So I go on. We are not aware, most of us are not aware if we are working through the spirit or the flesh. One reason is that our desires are constantly changing. They're split. So it's like we're running from here to there to everywhere. Now, in this astrological message, it said that there's a fixed goal. And that goal has been fixed by who? Divine. Yes. And it is for us to rise to that higher state. You hear about the ascension. This is the ascension that everybody's talking about, putting a bunch of madness around. But okay. Sin in every individual is commanded by divine to ascend. What is ascension? Ascension is becoming conscious and aware, to become tamed and have self-control. However, one has to live life and life cycles in order to destroy the ego. I want to talk about the ego because that is a pretty significant term relative to this interpretation. What is the role of the ego in an individual? Well, I personally think of the ego as like somewhat of a separate spirit and body within an individual. And the ego is selfish. It's self. It wants to survive. It wants to live. It wants to express itself. That is all the energy of the fifth house of Leo. Fabulous self-expression. The ego wants to express itself. It wants to sustain its existence. But the only way the ego can sustain its existence and express itself is if you are alive. So, the ego motivates, impels even, an individual to perform certain acts in order to do what? To sustain itself. It has to try to sustain the person and move that person to allow it to express itself. So the ego is key in this interpretation is what I'm saying. The message was saying that we have to live our lives and have our experiences because that's the only way that the ego can be dealt with. But I'm going to go on. I'm going to turn the computer off. Number 2, talking about that fixed goal. The fixed goal is to manifest. Manifest what? A higher level of consciousness, to rise in consciousness, to tame yourself and to have self-control. Tame, control. It's to rise in consciousness and awareness. It's to be intelligent, but not through the ego. I'm going to jump ahead. Just read, Nancy. Just read. There are 2 things that is taking place. One's, each of our, one meaning each individual, emotional state is determined by if they have or they have not. What do I mean? They have or have not? Well, there's 2 things going on. It's the flesh and it's the spirit. If you have the spirit, that's what divine wants you to have, to live through the spirit. Do you have the spirit? Are you living through the spirit? I don't want to jump the gun. The other thing that's taking place is the flesh. If you are in the flesh, then let's go back to the have and have not. That's the material world. If you don't have, or if you have, determines your emotional state. How can I say that differently? If you have, see, some people that have so much, their ego is atrocious. And then there are others that have, but they are in the spirit, and the worldly things, the material things don't govern or dictate or from a spiritual level make them feel more empowered. Then there are people that have not, and having not having is an affliction upon their soul, and they want and they long. I remember I made this video about this dream I had of hell, where it was complete darkness and nothing. In the dream I was aware of nothing. I was permitted to know something. What was I permitted to know? The experience I was having, so that I could report it. So in the state of hell, there was nothing. There was no awareness. There was just gnawing. We were chewing. Every individual was chewing each other up. It was complete black. I was complete black. They were complete black. We couldn't see each other. All we doing were gnawing. We didn't even know that we were gnawing on each other. We weren't even conscious of it. But then there was this numbing, agonizing pain. But you wasn't conscious of it. It was continuous. It wouldn't stop. It was no fulfillment. It was no satisfaction. There was no end. I was like, wow. And there were so many. It was person stacked upon person, stacked upon person, and just stacked upon person. It was just gnawing. And everybody was completely burnt black with red, like simmering embers underneath the layers. And there was no satisfaction. It was no satisfaction at all. That was a deep dream. That was a deep experience. And I bring that up because those that don't have, but the desire continues to burn nevertheless, it burns and is unyielding. And so it affects their soul. Now, still talking about the ultimate goal. The divine has set before us the command, and it is to rise in conscious awareness, intelligence, and to release or relinquish the ego. And this is, this is relative to the fleshly world, the worldly things, is that our worldly needs and wants. One's desires are inconsistent or split. That's what I was saying about my dream of hell, referring to that, which leads to an inner battle. It's a continuous inner battle, because it's like our desires, our wants, our needs are inconsistent. They are split, and therefore we can never be fulfilled in the spirit. This going back into that religious stuff I studied. This is so interesting to me. So relative to your needed attempt to satisfy one's inconsistent desires, one has to live life cycles. I'm having a hard time improvising, but what am I saying there is that, hey, it is apparent that we have these inconsistent, unyielding desires and needs and wants. And because they burn inside of us, the only way to deal with them is for us, individual, one, to go ahead and live life and life cycles out. And because we have to go have these life experiences in order to deal with the issue, we will be guided to familiar spirits, people just like ourselves, people that are burning like ourselves and or in the spirit. And even in the midst of those life experiences, one is continually going through this inner battle. And it is about, how can I say, this is so deep. A couple of years ago was this game that was developed called Pokemon Go, and I made a video about it. And what it was really about was I forgot where I was going, but as we have these life experiences, we are in this inner battle. In this inner battle, oh gosh dang it, I'm trying to think, because it was a video that I made was talking about, it was in that prophetic message from March 6, 2016, where Divine was saying to me and others in the world that he had broken, or she, however you like to address divine energy, had broken the stronghold. That's what it was. It wasn't the Pokemon Go. Had broken the strongholds. It says because God knew that we who, me, you, and every individual in humanity had been improperly influenced by, dark negative energies, the principalities and all that dark forces. He knew that, she, however you like to address it, knew that we had been improperly influenced, and therefore he broke the stronghold that they had on us and cast them down, and said from that point on, which was March 6, 2016, now it's up to you. You will be held accountable for your works. Now, you have to, he was going to be working, he got, divine energy is going to be working with us who, every individual in humanity, to transform our minds because we were improperly influenced. We've been trained. So we had to break that influence. And so here it is, basically, again, that we're having this ongoing internal battle as we go through our life experiences in order to try to fulfill our fluctuating needs and wants and desires. They're so inconsistent, they're split. And so we have these experiences, and we're going through this inner turmoil and battle. And the battle is about those entities that Divine had broken the stronghold between us and them. That their influence upon us still exists. It still permeates throughout our environment, our atmosphere. We have been improperly influenced. And so many of us still move to live out those archetype type of energies, like I even brought up the satire associated with Capricorn, and the lower half, the goat, the lascivious nature, the sexual predatory nature, that type of God. And the other part of that inner battle is too, because we can feel it pulsating in us at least sometime, that we can move with the flow of divine energy, divine in human form, that energy to create and the energy of will. But in order to embody that divine energy, we have to rise in consciousness, awareness. We must control ourselves, and that takes will, and control ourselves. In order to handle will, you must have control to handle will, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I have a note here, and the note says, here is the opportunity for change of one's nature by the detriment of the ego. What am I saying? That that I've just talked about. In order to obtain the goal, to reach the goal that has been commanded by divine, we have to go have these experiences, because we burning with desire, and we've been improperly influenced. We can feel divine trying to work with us, but we're just burning so profusely that we have to have these experiences. And it's all to, you know, give us the opportunity. He said he was going to transform our minds. He said that here it says he's going to give us the opportunity to change our nature by deteriorating the ego through those experiences. Now, it says, still relative to manifesting that, the ultimate goal, which is to rise in consciousness, is to, it's a warning, basically. Looking outside of yourself leads to challenges and the deterioration of one's physical, emotional, and mental self, therefore affecting the state of one's ego. Ooh, harsh. I don't know if you caught that. I don't even know if I said it right. But when we go have an exchange with another, when we seek our answer in something outside of ourselves, oh, it get good at the end. It says that it's an erosion taking place. It's an erosion taking place. And it is in the physical, it is emotional, and it is mental. And it's all getting down and chiseling away at that ego. And it's saying that when we have these experiences, when we go through all that stuff I've spoken of, that there's spiritual baggage. There's baggage. And the baggage is inquired and it will increase due to the influence of others relative to ourselves, or others' interactions or exchanges with ourselves. It's not real long. It's not real long. Let me speed up. Okay, number 3. One's emotional state is determined by if they have or have not. Remember, I was saying that you will hear repeated information, but it's how the aspects relate to one another that brings about a more defined message. So, one's emotional state is determined by if they have or have not. Those that have in this world could have an atrocious ego, very defensive or very entitled. And those are some that have but they work through the spirit, so it's a different spirit experience is humble. Then there are those that do not have that. When I was referring to that state of hell I experienced in a dream state, where they are burning with the desire to fulfill their worldly needs. And it's also the other thing when it asks the question of or talks about the state, a person's emotional state, depending upon if they have or have not. Remember, at the beginning, it said that many of us don't even know what our essence is. We don't know if we're working through the physical or through the flesh or through the spirit. For those that are working through the spirit, you are a person that has. But those that are not, have not acquired the spirit and is not in tune or nor know their essence, that they are a have not. And therefore leaves them susceptible to this physical, the desires and the demands of this physical world, as well as the life experiences. And how that would add baggage to them, and it is a detriment, and it causes deterioration to the physical, the mental, and the physical, the mental, and the physical, emotional, and mental self, and it is ultimately about destabilizing the ego. And humbling it. Anyway, let's talk about that emotional state. Does one possess or work from the spirit or from the flesh? Next, one will come to terms with if they are working in the spirit or in the flesh. And there are clues. There are clues. Next, the mind is governed by the ego. Now, this is the catch. The ego has a master. The master is either one that resides or is directly related to the worldly possessions and survival and fulfillment, that kind of thing. And then there's another master, of course, is divine, who governs the spirit, and therefore the ego, because the ego's not going anywhere. It's just about gaining control of it. That wild horse, like relative to Sagittarius, the wild horse running free, doing what it want to do. And so when divine is in control of one's spirit, you're living in the spirit, then the ego is governed or ruled and embodies the doctrine, the teachings, live out the teachings of divinity. Whereas if a person's ego is governed by or ruled by the darker energies and forces, then that person will embody the characteristics and traits associated with self-absorbed, egotistical, dark ego. Anyway, we're talking about one's emotional state, and it is determined by if they have or have not. As I said, one will come to terms to if they are living in the flesh or the spirit. The mind is governed by the ego, which I was just saying, flesh or spirit. Clues. Ego progresses aggressively active to satisfy the needs and or wants of the being self. Remember, I was talking about how the ego has an interest in making sure that one expresses themselves or stays alive, because its own existence depends on a person staying in this physical environment and suit and all that kind of stuff. Now, the next thing, another clue, is the ego is selfish and is self-seeking. Now, I found this so interesting because as I've been doing my studies down through the years, I just recently started going back to the Bible since that prophetic message thing, March 6, 2016, because a lot of things have I know something happened. I experienced it physically. I experienced it. But what I'm saying, and I've talked about this verse, I can't remember what video, but it talked about in the final days how the people would be, how humanity would be. And it said that, this is a loose statement, but so in the final days, they would be lovers of themselves, blasphemous, and self-serving, and disrespectful to parents, all those kind of things. And that's what it's saying here about the ego, that the ego is selfish and is self-seeking. I mean, that's a short version of what was said. Anyway, the next thing, still talking about one's emotional state and how it is determined by if a person has or have not, both whether they have spirit or they do not, or they reside in spirit or do not, or if they are in the physical, if they actually have what is necessary in this physical world to sustain the egotistical and narcissistic essence of their ego, that kind of thing. Or are they suffering because their wants and needs are not being met in this physical world? Hope I'm making this make sense. Anyway, the next thing is the goal is fixed. Remember, we're back to the goal. Remember, repetitive information because of the aspects and how things relate to each other in the stars. So back to the fixed goal. What is the goal? What is the command by divine energy? to rise in consciousness, to tame yourself, to have self-control. And it says, the inner battle rages. Either you're going to follow one of those archetypes, those dark, malevolent entities that improperly influenced you and I, every bit individual in humanity, if they could. Or you could be in the flow of divine energy, under the wings, I know you heard, under the wings of God, in divinity, and move with this creative spirit in this wheel that is offered. Wow. Another thing about one's emotional state, which is determined by if they have or have not, is you'll be with familiar spirits on this journey. We talked about being with familiar spirits was necessary so that the ego can, the process of the ego being dealt with can begin. And we found that in those experiences, a lot of baggage will be added unto a person spiritually. And there is a deterioration of one's mental, emotional, and physical being as the ego is being chiseled away at. But it says, here's the opportunity for change, to change a man's or woman's nature. Wow. The last thing relative to one's emotional state, which is determined by if they have or have not in this world, is the spiritual baggage increases as others affect and influence you, just the experience itself. So that can suggest that the experiences are really not going the way that people desire them to go. And then there's a lot of fickleness and changeability that is happening. How do we know that? Because the stars read that our desires are inconsistent. Our wants and needs are inconsistent. And so it's a lot of changeable energy there. And therefore our moods are changing and fluctuating. Now, I'm going to go on to number 4. Number 4 is one's desires are changing. Repeated information for a purpose. They are split. What's split? The desires, the wants, the needs. They're inconsistent, leading to an inner battle. One is unaware if they are working through the flesh or spirit. So, what am I saying there? First and foremost, individuals are being in the flesh, period. This body and, oh my God, all its requirements and needs and the urges and the desires and the 5 senses is highly demanding. So one's desires are always changing. They are fluctuating. They are split, and they're leading us to go through an inner battle. Now, that inner battle is, I believe, more, can deal with it a little better if you're walking in the spirit. That's something that the church was trying to teach. Interesting. But if you're in the flesh, you're in the flesh, and your 5 senses want to indulge in whatever the case may be, and the urges go to throw in their temper tantrum, it complicates things. And it was saying that one is unaware if they are working through the flesh or the spirit. But remember, early on it said that will be revealed to each individual. Each individual, me, you, and every individual in humanity is going to be revealed. How is it going to be revealed? Because again, there is a I know y'all heard that they said God, the Holy Spirit is the comforter. And I can't help but get religious because that's what the stars were saying. Now, hey, stars is not church, it's not religion. I'm not in the church, but it's amazing. It's the same message. That's what I'm saying. Ride this wave with me because it's so interesting. It's intriguing. Because in that prophetic message I received back in March 6, 2016, God said, I'm going to transform your mind. I was like, okay. So I'm gonna keep on going. He said he's gonna transform my mind. And this time is highly frustrating. It's highly frustrating, and I know that it is. And many of us don't know what's going on. Well, here it is. It says, my word does not leave out from me, and my word do not return to me void. It goes out, and it accomplishes that which I send it to perform. Let's see. Anywho, so remember, early on, it said that we would come to know if we are working in the spirit or if we work in the flesh. Possible clues to discerning which constitutes your essence is that spirit walk, although life it can get complicated, it really does. There's a peace that those walking in the spirit will experience once you come to grips. Remember, it's about coming to grips and understand how you're walking. And those that are in the flesh will meet with extreme frustration, anxiety, depression. And why is that? Because the flesh is, I know y'all remember this one too, contrary to the spirit. And the flesh, again, has urges and longings and desires and wants for what? The fulfillment and satisfaction of the world and of this physicality. It wants its feel. But the strange thing about it is we're never full. And we're never full because we're inconsistent. We have so many desires and needs and wants. They're inconsistent, they're split, they're changeable. Anyway, back to the command. The command. It says, rise to consciousness. Tame yourselves. Be controlled. I go back and I point out once again, Capricorn, the centaur, bottom half, a goat, horny old goat. Lascivious, loves to indulge. And then the top half of the man, strong, hardworking, focused, having a creative spirit, and being able to tame and be contained. I also refer back to Sagittarius, half horse, half man. Lower half, running wild, free, unbridled passion. The higher self, the man, is intellectual, knows right from wrong, can make conscious decisions, and has gathered a level of knowledge and is executing it. And now he is wise. This is what it's saying. The command is to rise in consciousness, to tame yourself, to be controlled. The next thing is, one's emotional state is determined by if they have or have not repeated information, because it's significant, because how it's aspected to other things, other energies. And it says you come to term with the facts, and the facts are either you are rolling in the flesh or you are rolling in the spirit. And that is so significant because, again, we're still dealing with one's desires are changing and fluctuating and leading us to an inner battle. That inner battle that we are going through is going to help us determine, it's a clue to if we're rolling in the spirit or we're rolling in the flesh. Now, what it poses, this particular energy. Remember, I was saying, the stars were saying that to look outside of yourself for relief is basically a trap, and how it is a deterioration to the mental and the emotional and the physical self, all for the purpose of chiseling away at the ego. Another thing exists relative to this energy here is that you lose yourself in the crowd. Losing yourself in the crowd is detrimental. This is interesting because I brought this up last year, I think sometime, when I was doing some astrological readings, where somebody sounds like Divine is going to have us have this grand social mingle where we're going to be having exchanges and, you know, networking in order to see who we can work with and be around. Here we are. And I said then, and it was said, express your fabulous self-expression, and I was getting confused. I said, because see, it seemed like to me from what I was reading, hey, it's some transformation about to take place. And even though the party sounded all good, it was for, it was only for those that have an ear to hear, an ear to hear, and an eye to see. That there was something that was taking place even a year ago relative to socialization. Anyway, it says many of us are losing ourselves in the crowd, in the world, in that grand social mingle, and it is a detrimental to the development of the self and to the development of the self in the spirit, because it can be improperly influenced, that kind of thing. But it is absolutely helpful for those that need that ego adjusted and humbled. Okay, just a little bit more. 7. One has to live life cycles to destroy the ego. But understand, while you live in those life experiences, going through the life cycles, because you have to, because the ego has to be dealt with, that there's spiritual baggage that will be acquired through your exchanges. Looking outside of yourself will lead to physical, emotional, and mental deterioration. And one's emotional state depends upon the success of one's partnerships and exchanges. You will come to terms with your essence. Are you in the flesh, or are you in the spirit? What am I saying there? Now, for each of us, we have various relationships, partnerships, connections, exchanges with others. And each of those partnerships, connections that we have with these various others, each have different terms based on who we're dealing with. And in each individual contract we have, there are the terms and the conditions. And what is happening, because we are so scattered, you know, scattered brain, scattered desires and urges and wants and needs. And if we have or if we have not, you know, all those things are going on, that sometimes others don't feel the conditions we throw on them, and we get all riled up. Or we do the same to them. They ask us of something and we can't do it. We get riled up. The purpose of us coming together, us who? Us and any individual we are relating to, or we are in a contract with, or a partnership with. Those experiences are meeting with challenges. And it's all to help us come to grips with how are we walking? What are we inspired by? Are we walking in the flesh, or are we walking in the spirit? Remember, the flesh talks about worldly desires and pleasures and giving over to urges and fulfilling and the satisfaction, and so you're preoccupied with. Spirit is where you are in that higher state of consciousness and awareness. You tame your urges, your desires. You have a sense of charity in this world, etc., those kind of things. Oh Lord, the birds are chirping. I'm about to get done, y'all. It was just interesting to me. I got a little passionate and just wanted to get this message out. Anyway, we're still talking about living the life cycles that we must live in order to destroy the ego. It says the one is unaware of their essence. As you go, live their life experiences, many of us are not aware of our essence. That is to say, if we are living from the flesh or we are living from the spirit. And so we're going to have these experiences. There will be baggage that is acquired through these exchanges. And that the same way, another way to say is that looking outside of yourself leads to those physical, emotional, and mental deteriorations. Those and all that. It depends upon the success you have in any partnership or contract. You may be in a contract you don't even want to be there. That's perfect making for a changeable nature or something like that. Or you're in a contract with another that doesn't deliver, doesn't contribute, it's not 50-50 or whatever the case may be. And it's just this lack of fulfillment in partnerships for one reason or another. And the reason why this is occurring because it's about exposing who you are on a soul level. Wow. I did the video on the soul level. It's called the State of the Soul Address. State of the Soul Address. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, on to number 9. Well, it's number 9. I just numbered the houses. So 9. This is a 29th degree. It's critical degree. Meaning that if it ain't been done, it's gonna get done now. Before this next for this final degree tick out, it's going to get done now, and it's moving. One's emotional state is affected by the status and the success of their relationships. So folks are probably leading you to feel a certain way, to go ahead and react, to respond. There are bursts or emotional spills out. Because it's the 29th degree is critical. If you haven't done it, it's time to do it. You will do it. So one's emotional state is affected and by the status and success of their relationships, any relationship, partnership, or connection. And if one, me, you're an individual, in this case, themselves can or want to contribute to the partnership. I was talking about how I was talking about you might be in a partnership that you don't even want to be in, that contract. So you're going to make a move. Somebody's going to make a move. Somebody's going to do something. Somebody's going to say something. It's highly frustrating time. This is all spiritual stuff is what I'm saying, folks. Let's see. Relative to that, spiritual baggage will be acquired. Looking outside of yourself leads to the physical and mental and emotional damage. You must live and experience to dissolve the ego, because the ego is about self-perseverance, is very selfish and self-centered. So, for the most part, based on the ego and our inconsistent desires, wants, and needs, whatever another is asking of us or demanding of us is hard for us to see because we have our own personal selfish aims and desires. I talked about that before. Now, the next thing is one is unaware of their essence. Back to if one is living from the flesh or from the spirit. And it's this, and this is what it was saying. Now, is this it? That was divine. Final. Okay. It's the unwillingness to meet the goal, to rise in consciousness or self-control. It is because one is unaware of who they are. And this is basically pointing to those that are living worldly, that are living in the flesh. And it is this unwillingness to meet the goal. What is the goal? What is the command by divinity? It is to rise in consciousness, awareness to take control of oneself, unwillingness to follow through on that, to hear divinity's call to rise ourselves in consciousness and awareness and to control ourselves. And it's this unwillingness to do what you can't hear. But they say those that I was saying earlier, if you have an ear to hear and eyes to see, a person is by essence, from their essence, preoccupied with the world. Or or to choose the alternative divinity, as your master to say, and it is manifested in this world as a creative free will energy, and to live in the spirit, in divinity, your higher self, which is love and compassion and charity and so on and so on. And it's like ignoring this opportunity for change. Most of us don't know what's taking place in our life, why it's so chaotic and erratic, and people are getting on our nerves, and we're having these outbursts, and it's spiritual. It's a spiritual thing that is really happening to us. And for the first time, general people in humanity can interpret the information. This information was occult, hidden knowledge, kept by elect people, but now we know. And the really crazy part, I hope this lines up. Y'all rode the wave with me, because when it comes to religion, I talk about religion a lot because that was my background. It was difficult for me to set it aside and to venture off where I am, and I didn't even venture off. It led me here. It led me here, and then I get here, and now some years down the line, it brings up the same stuff I was learning, and I just hope Divine got it. So anyway, I wrote this little side note relative to one's emotional state is affected by the status or success of their relationships, those contracts they have with each other. If they're in it, if people are breaching the contract, if they're able to fulfill it, whatever the case may be, you can't see yourself and you don't know what's going on, stuff driving you crazy, you're frustrated, you're having these emotional spills, blah, blah, blah. It's the 29th degree, a critical time. If it hasn't been done, it will be done. It says, influence of one's essence, contributory factor. There go a legal term. Contributory factor. What's a contributory factor to a person's current state? It is that they don't even know who they are or what they're working from, who their master is. Is it the world, or is it the world, the flesh, or is it the spirit? Is it God and divinity? And due to that, blindness, we'll say, as far as the worldly, fleshly folk caught up in that, can't hear, you can't see. You're not recognizing the call of divinity upon your life, not just your life, as every individual's life in humanity is all rise in consciousness. This is the wave that everybody's been talking about. The information is coming. The emotions are coming. The emotions are pouring forward because they want to be addressed, because they're not being satisfied. Being in the physical realm, in the fleshly realm, we can't be fulfilled. We can't be fulfilled. But that's still spirits and demons and principalities of the urge and stuff like that. Whole nother video. I did do one on it before. I don't remember the name of it. It might have been called The Urge. You can check it out if you can find it. Anyway, I'm about to close this video down. I have a couple of more things. It's basically a divine summary of what was just said. Anyway, what makes this so hard, so difficult? One's emotions are governed by having or having not. And again, we're talking about if a person has spirit, if they have the direction, if they can hear, if they can see, if they can breathe through the situation, because it's divinely inspired for a purpose, to clean humanity up, to clean the world up. Seem like it's making a noise, but God, divine got it, so I'm just going to keep on reading. But if they have not, and they're in the flesh, and all they want is that of the world, to satisfy the urges, desires, to run free, to have, just indulge and to be lascivious, whatever the case may be, relative to this world, to satisfy one's physicality. That's what makes it so hard to be in that state of being. Anyway, I go back. One's emotions are governed by having or not having. Will, W-I-L-L. Discernment. You got to discern which you are, flesh, working through the flesh or through the spirit, it says it will be revealed. It will be exposed to each of us. And taking possession of divine spiritual energy as your own. Now, in closing, I thank you for riding away with me. I'll be running my mouth. My videos be over an hour. Thank you. In closing, it seemed like it was somewhat of a summary. Divine was offering in the stars of all that I talked about. So I'm just going to read the 12th house. It says, be with familiar spirits, for it is the best opportunity for you to change your nature. You are in a spiritual battle. You can continue to live out the dark, improper influences you have been exposed to, or you can change your nature by tapping into the divine creative free will. It says, I know you are unaware of your essence. 2, I command you to rise. 3, choose what you need. Do not be lukewarm. I remember that one too. Do not be lukewarm. I mean, of course, I'm when I'm reading this stuff and interpreting, I'm like, oh, that sounds like that. So that's how I end up getting the information. That's that, So it says, choose what you need. Do not be lukewarm. Choose. Remember, it was saying that we were very inconsistent. Our needs, our wants, our desires are inconsistent. It's saying choose. I'm not going to jump the gun. Number 4, look within yourself. Remember, it was saying don't look to outside of yourself. Don't look to others. Look within yourself. Deal with yourself. And how to be in the world is to lose yourself. That's deep. Because that's exactly what it said all them years, I guess. Wasn't in vain. People can't switch stars around now, can they? Interesting. It says, if you live from flesh, you will always be in need and therefore never emotionally stable. Choose spirit. Wow. Dang. Going back to that filter, it says, life and death is in the tongue. Choose life. Basically the same. 6, gather no more baggage. Don't get no more karma. 7, relinquish your selfish ways. 8, take care of the works and deeds you perform. Going back to that prophetic message of March 6, 2016, it says, because you will be held accountable for your works. This is some deep stuff. I better watch my mouth now, because something definitely watching. I don't know who it is or what it is that has this much influence upon our galaxy. It can give these kind of messages, but I'm highly impressed. I'm highly impressed, and I am impressed with those that made it to the end of this video. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you like it with a thumbs up, and share it. This is an amazing message. Now, I will close this video. I do have a concern. What concern? What was that concern? Oh, okay. Divine. I'm asking this live. Well, I ain't live, but asking it in my video. A person walks in the spirit. I remember how you were revealing that heaven would descend slowly back upon this earth. But right now we're in the process of going through a state of transformation. And it can get really, really critical. That's interesting too. It can get really critical. But divinity has called us to rise in consciousness and awareness. The battle is on, both in the spirit and the physical. So, my concern is when when life get tough and rough, we're talking about the real life physical world, people ain't gonna want to give up all of this good old stuff and trying to satisfy our urges and our five senses. And oh Lord have mercy, I know I won't get it up. How we gonna deal with the pushback? The pushback. What does it mean to be under the wings of God? What does it mean to Lord Jesus, stop it. Stop it right now. I got to tell y'all what I was thinking of. Because I'm going to say something that's going to make y'all some of y'all very angry, especially, you know, the religious folks, the Bible thumpers, is that I don't think of Jesus as the Son of God. I don't. I think he was an ascended person. He was conscious and he was aware where divinity, God, is trying to take us now. And in that moment, I just thought about Jesus and his suffering and the cross and the crucifix. I ain't built for that. I'm not built for that. I really ain't. But I guess who is? Anyway, thank you for coming here to Can Angels Fly and riding this awesome wave with me. Until next time. Bye.